man.
Houston, we have a connection. Houston, we have a connection.
Finally.
Yeah. All right. So let's wait for the other speaker slot, and then we're gonna kick it off. Kick it off. Yes, loud and clear, Vladimir. So Jesse, can you also request, and then we're gonna be good, I guess. I see Jesse is here too. Jesse, please request speaker slot, and then I will accept that. All right, here we go. Jesse is here. All right, hello everybody. Sorry for the shaky start. I'm sure a lot of people dropped off already, but I'm hoping that they'll come back. Anyways, as usual, we're having a few technical issues with our beloved platform X, but we, third time's the charm. So here we go. Welcome to the Agents Unplugged, your biweekly AI deep dive. This is the 10th anniversary of the space in terms of sessions. So it's a milestone, Marco, that we've hit. Unfortunately, you couldn't be there last week. However, I'm very happy that you're here with me again. And I see a new title, Head of AI. So maybe you can speak on that, firstly.
What? That was there for a long time. I think for like, I don't know, 9, 10 months I've been head of AI at Oasis. What did you think?
Oh, really? Oh man, bro, I thought you were like the CMO.
No, no. I introduce
Okay.
myself at every space and it's always head of AI.
Oh, sorry, that's my bad. Then, like, my memory serves me very badly. Then never mind, guys. Marco here, head of AI. And then we have Jesse from Codata, we have Manan from Lunar, and we have Vladimir from Aspis. I will give you all like the chance to introduce yourself very briefly. Let's start with Jesse.
Hi guys, nice to meet you guys here. And I'm the marketing manager at Codata. And at Codata, we're trying to build the knowledge layer for all AI projects in Web3. And we have a community of data contributors and domain experts to provide all the knowledge the AI projects need to thrive. Thank you.
Awesome. Welcome on the space, Jesse. Let's go with Manan. You can go and introduce yourself.
Hello, everyone. Can you guys hear me?
Loud and clear.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, everyone, I am Manan Patel. I have been in the space for around, I guess, 8 years already now. I started as the founding team of Ocean Protocol and then worked my way through up. And then now since last 2 years, I'm building Lunar AI. And Lunar is basically a full stack Web3 ecosystem to crowdfund, co-create, and co-own AI systems. Not only AI systems, but any intelligence systems like human intelligence or artificial intelligence. And we are building three parts for that. That is Lunar Fund to fund the intelligence. Then Lunar Quest, which is basically AI building platform for community quests, and Lunar Market to monetize the outcomes that comes out of the quest. In short, basically, you can imagine Lunar as a platform to launch an AI trading agent, for example, where the crowd funds it, devs compete to build it, and everyone shares in the revenue, and all transparently through on-chain.
Awesome. Thank you very much. And then lastly, Vladimir, go ahead.
Yeah, hello. My name is Vladimir. I'm co-founder and CTO at Aspis Protocol. So we created one of the first deep AI projects that's mostly focused on interface abstraction to allow users having like on-chain experience without need to switch between wallets and everything integrated from one place. So we introduced currently AIAgent that helps you to manage your non-custodial asset in Telegram using our vaults. And we right now building on AI that's trying to outperform humans in trading. So we having like trading contests for AI developers as well as our own development. So I think that this goes pretty well into the topic because I'm right on the intersection between technology, AI, and cybersecurity, which is all like three very important pieces, and it can be like another trilemma that we need to explore because like AI needs to like be secure at the same time, it needs to be reliable, and at the same time, it needs to abstract the way how people are interacting with stuff.
Nice. And one side note for everybody that's just joining in, I see people are joining. Yeah, so Vladimir is representing Aspis, and Aspis is also just like Swarm Network, part of the SUI Hub Accelerator, one of the 5 projects that got selected out of the more than 600 like applications that have been drafted from, I believe, even a larger pool, and that eventually just received investment from the SUI Foundation directly. So yeah, we're really happy to be in our final stages of the program actually. So what's what has been happening, just to give our communities, mutual communities, a quick update on this program. It's like we have been like in talks with people from Misten Labs, people from the SUI Foundation, and their friends and advisors and collaborators. We've really had a very much hands-on experience. We've had a lot of one-on-one calls. We've had a lot of group calls. We have had a lot of like advisory calls to really sharpen our strategies and our visions and our products and our go-to-market strategies and our marketing related, like messaging and so on. It's like it was really hands-on, and it's now we're in the final stages of this. So we will have a demo day. Of that demo day is going to potentially be broadcasted by the SUI Foundation on one of their channels too. So yeah, stay tuned. That's gonna be happening probably somewhere around next week. I believe the date is the 11th, but I might be mistaken. But we'll do a announcement about it. So yeah, so like Aspis is one of the projects that we're also really bullish on, and that I have mentioned on the space before. So yeah, welcome everybody. As usual, like I will not be moderating as much. It's more of like an free for all kind of like panel where we can just speak our mind. We still have around 45 minutes on the clock. If you all are comfortable, we can go overtime a little bit because we started late. However, we don't have to, and if you want to drop off earlier, then that's also fine. But without further ado, let's kick off the first topic of today. And what I would really like to talk about is, to start talking about like VO3 and the recent video models that have been coming out. There's been another couple of companies that I've just recently seen. I think there's one called Magis, which is really like a very specifically trained set of characters. So they don't really go like all in like VO3 in terms of like it's like a good for everything, but they were more focused on like product showcasing, using like specific models that can incorporate your product, but also are very, 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 very cohesive. When I saw it, I was like, whoa, like I cannot tell this person apart from like a real person. The only tell was the inconsistency really in the backgrounds and the decor of like the sets. There were still quite some inconsistencies from that perspective. So you could tell, like, if you would pause the video and you could kind of zoom in into the background and see what was on the desk, like one scene to another, you would be able to tell that it was AI generated. But these things are getting scary, man, and they now have sound and they have, like they, it's just insane. I'm sure you guys have something to say on this. Before I keep rambling on, I'd like to invite somebody else to drop a few words on this topic.
Where can you actually test it? I tried for so long to find a place where I can actually use VO3, but it always gives me VO2.
We were able to test it in the studio that we got from Google, but I'm not sure if that's accessible to everybody because we got the grant and we got access to the AI tools. I'm not sure if it's already available for the public, but I believe it is. I'm not sure actually.
I couldn't figure it out, and we have the pro subscription by our Google Workplace. I tried it on AI Studio Google, but nothing.
I think it's not also available like outside US or outside certain countries. It also has kind of a geography barrier for now.
Right. Right. So, but what do you guys think about this? So the other app is called Mirage Studio, by the way. If you go to Mirage, their like their acts, you'll see like a bunch of videos, even like some podcasts, and like it's just so magical, you know, like the expressions that these characters express and the way the lip sync is just like completely like in sync and it just like looks scary, it looks like real, you know.
Yeah, I think that's a kind of upper hand that VO has because up until now you could generate, let's say, videos using Runway ML, generate audios using 11 Labs or other platforms, but you couldn't sync it, right?
Right.
Plus, there's also like the current AI models to generate audio or let's say voice clone, but there is also uh, ambient sounds that VO3 is generating, you know, out of
Right.
uh, like out of blue, and this is scary because this kind of creates kind of a real scene, real scenario, and I think very soon it will be difficult to differentiate real influencers from the AI influencers, you know, on YouTube now, not only
Yeah.
on the image side, but also on the video side.
Yeah. Yeah, we've been touching on these similar topics like many times in our space previously, but it's actually never been so real and so close. And you know, like the problem with these trends I see is that everybody is mind blown when a new model comes out because not everybody is on the verge, is on the edge of technology. You know, like we've seen this technology, we've seen the lip sync stuff, like in a little bit lower quality, like 6 7 months ago, but not available at scale to the public. But then now all of a sudden, you know, it's not just Google, it's also like this Mirage Studio, and there's a bunch of other similar models that have dropped with the same capability. So what I then always think about is like, okay, so you know, like let's say 3 months from now, what will this entail? What will we see? And the next step, you know, beyond the generation is obviously live, right? Like at one point, probably sooner than later, because these companies, they're all hyper focused on like a very specific aspect, you know, like for example, like Mirage is for example focused on characters and video, and then they added now this sound model to it, right? But it's really hyper specific, it's hyper focused. So you know, like the only logical next step for them would be to go all in on the live aspect of it, where you can just like have your agent, you know, embodied virtually through hooking it up to a different model where you know whatever stream of conscious if you will comes out of your agent could be represented and could be augmented as you know in kind of like a character or a personality, which potentially would be highly customizable, but also very consistent. And this opens up like a whole slate of like very new and dynamic business models in this type of like industry. And I don't think that it's, you know, limited to just like, you know, like influencers and marketing and so, but this is really, really huge, you know, like this, you know, trickles really well into like our space in terms of like AI agents, you know, like what is the mode of interaction currently? Well, the mode of interaction currently with your AI is still language based. Um, I've seen some statistics, for example, uh, regarding like how many people are actually using voice mode in ChatGPT, and it's very low. Like it's a very small amount of people that are actually actively and frequently using the voice mode. But imagine now you have like a, you know, like your agent embodied as a very you know, very pretty human, whether it's a guy or a girl, doesn't matter. And now you can interact with this person. Like this opens up like so many new avenues for monetization on the internet. And I am baffled by these models, like literally.
I mean, for me, it's two things. First, I would really love to understand or know the actual numbers because I cannot imagine video generation to be remotely profitable for any of the big companies because it really utilizes all the hardware that you have. And then you really need to think, hey, do I actually need to live stream, for example, some video generated content that's super high quality? I mean, there's a reason currently most of those are like anime characters because it's just not that intensive. And the second part is actually video does very much feel very different, as Manan said. Like when you have like AI generated text floating around, like, yeah, okay, it's fine. I know this is out there. But with videos, you really think about the impact it could have. And I know I'm always kind of on the doomer side of things, but it really brings this whole narrative of like fake news way closer home because now you could be very easily generating very realistic fake content that will or can impact people, and that's super scary.
I think actually the majority of news that we see today is fake news, right? Because like, from 2000s there is no need to send like reporters of CNN or sound, and if you can just like something on a green screen. So I think that it's not bad because it's just like opens up all the technology to everyone, like similar way how okay, like enabled to have your own like banking system, then we have like our own like personal AIs. Yeah, after that we're having like our own ways of doing like these pranks or just exaggerating the trend that every news that we see like basically is a fake news. I mean the majority of it because there is like filtering happening on the editor who is choosing like which scenes or which news to cover in a 40 minutes time frame, for example, right? So, and I think that this creates another pricing for authenticity that is that cannot be broken. There are ways how you can like still prove that you're an authentic person by having like your own channel and having your own like informational hygiene. And this creates like more field for developing like critical common sense also in people to filter out the facts and think that everything that is actually shown or said can be manipulated or it can be like non-authentic and everything. And this creates like more tolerance to the fake things. And another thing that like in majority of cases we cannot even like on macro scale we cannot even trust our own like history and memories. And this creates like precedent that just basically showing up how everything can be made up like in history books or in all the different stuff. So I think like the question is right now becomes like not what is true, but it like what are the outcomes and what are the like price of it. So even before you can still do like faking news or faking characters, so using like video creation tools to like fake something or hire actors. And now it's just like becoming not the privilege of a few, but either like the common thing that is available to everyone. So you can also think that this is good and this will increase like the global human conscious like tolerance to to the fake stuff.
That's a very interesting take indeed. Jesse, go ahead.
Yeah, and it's nice to hear such insightful opinions from everyone. And I want to talk about BO3 from my personal perspective as a marketer. I feel like every time this generative tool came out, it's harder for me to get, budgets for making videos for promotion. Like my boss would say, "Hey, I heard this tool just came out. Why don't you, try it out and see how we can leverage it at a minimum budget, And but each time I feel like maybe this is an opportunity to do that, and I would try it out. I remember when Sora first came out, I tried to make promo videos with it, but like it was so disappointing. Like everything is out of place, and people's hands are on their heads. So I feel like with Buell 3, like I tried it, it's so much better. Like it just has developed so fast, and uh like the video, like the outcome, it's so amazing. But still, I feel like if I want to use it for a specific promotion purpose, it's still hard for me to, just tweak some little things in the video. I feel like it's more like capable when it comes to creative video generation, and maybe like in their like official showcase videos, it's like more artful and creative expression. Like, but if I want to do it like in a more like fixed circumstances, for example, let it like promote a new function or a new project, it's still very limited. But I feel like maybe some AI project could, utilize this model to build a more uh, like uh, more capable tool for, just for marketers, or for, it's like a video version of Canva where you can just uh produce more natural looking and professional videos, but still it can, like, you can maybe tweak it to your specific marketing needs or something. So like
Yeah,
that's my personal
yeah, but
feeling
but
about it. Yeah.
but like, yeah, you're right, because like, of course, like these models, they're super overhyped in the beginning, even though they're very still like kind of like rudimentary and very novel, and definitely not, as flexible as they are now. But you saw that also with image generation, right? So like I remember when Midjourney just came out, it was what Stable Diffusion just came out actually. It was like pretty trash, like you couldn't get good hands, you couldn't get, like consistency in terms of like, okay, you reprompt something and then like you try to get the same aesthetic or the same characteristics or same facial expression or facial characteristics or whatever. It just didn't work. But as it proliferated, as the models are trained by more people using better technology, using better strategies, actually, using more compute, like they became better and better and better. And now you have like the image generation field has proliferated to a certain level where you have these apps that are just really stellar. You can really create cohesive like stuff. You can take an image of your product, you can regenerate that image in a new image, like a character can hold it, can interact with it, and the consistency is just really, really, really stellar. So like that's going to happen with these video tools like very quickly now, right? Like, and then indeed, like there's like all of these diverse monetization channels and all of these purposes like e-commerce or social media monetization through like ad revenue and sponsorship and affiliate marketing. But then there's also all of these crazy, crazy, crazy things that are going to happen in terms of dynamics in large scale industries. That the Hollywood industry, the film industry is a massive, probably the largest entertainment industry. Um, in the world, and this is definitely gonna turn it on its head. I just checked the numbers, like the big film industry, the global film industry is projected to be around $330 billion in 2025, and a lot of that money comes from very high grade production, and that high grade production also costs a lot of money, right? So it's not strange for a blockbuster movie nowadays to spend over $100 million on a movie. But now with these new tools, that is definitely going to change, because obviously, like would you rather spend like $100,000 using technology, um, and get the same results or even better results than you would if you would produce it using real people? Or would you spend $100 million using real people and real, sets and so on? Um, like from a business perspective, of course, it makes a lot of sense. But then also Marco, I believe, just said like probably there's going to be this heightened value for things that are created using real humans. So yeah, it's a very interesting topic, and I want to get back on to what Vladimir was talking about, and maybe we can entice this conversation a little bit regarding like the fake news. Did you know, for example, that larger news outlets are using generated video and generated images? Like, I believe I might be misnaming
From
the channel.
2000s.
Yeah, from the 2000s. I think it's like CNN. CNN is frequently doing this, and then SBC and a bunch of others are actually they're using AI generated images and AI generated videos in their newsreels, which is just wild if you think about it, right? Because I'm 100% sure that, like my grandma, when she's watching like the news or when she's watching international news, like she doesn't know. She just thinks that she is watching a real scene, right? Like a real video or a real reel of a war zone or whatever it might be. And it doesn't have to be like always that, like don't get me wrong, like I'm naming like very extreme scenarios, right? Let's say like a AI generated war zone, like a video that is AI generated about a war zone, like represented in the news as footage supposedly shot and representing a real world event, right? Okay, so like where does then the barrier lie? Where's the edge here? Like how far can we go into either direction of, like augmenting everything for the sense of simplicity and for the sense of, like making more content, um, as opposed to, like trying to stay on the real side of the spectrum. I'm very, very, very curious to see how we as a society are going to deal with these kind of things, because there are so many pressing issues here. And yeah, it's a nice time to be alive. Go ahead, Vladimir.
Yeah, I just wanted to ask, like, maybe you can also, if we like already put this problem into the place, maybe then using like your truth protocol, can you like describe the technology that you're using to fight, for example, these things? Or like, is there a way for using like roll-up service or what you're building to show that to people that this is like a fake AI or not fake AI? Or is it like the topic of the swarm?
Yeah, so yeah, sure. Like the truth swarm, the first swarm that we created, and the truth protocol that is like working in tandem with all of the agents within that swarm, and then rollup news as kind of like the first DApp on top of that. What I would call them now is counterintelligence. So let's say like, okay, let's imagine we are two nations. Okay, like Vladimir is one nation and I am another nation, and I am constantly um, putting out information on my news channels, on my radio shows, in my online newspapers. Like I have a whole army of like journalists, which are essentially AI agents, or maybe real people, like, but they're augmenting a bunch of AI agents, and they're putting a lot of information out there. And I'm not sure, um, you are not sure, I mean, what information is real and what information is fake. So now you have a tool like Rollup News, for example, like that's now very specific for social media, but you can use Rollup News, you can use it to fact check my information, right? But that is a countermeasure, right? So that's why I call it counterintelligence. But the solution to fake news, for example, or the solution to an overcrowded information space caused by like people just grifting on the technology and trying to make as much money and ad revenue as possible, and just like making completely fictional like scenarios just to pull views, right? Whether that's like really serious scenarios or maybe just like cute puppy and cat videos, whatever. It doesn't really matter. But like that is the real issue, and the real issue is created by the people that use the technology. So you can create, like, I mean, like, for example, for the truth protocol, we created this whole consensus model to be able to verify whether something is real or fake, right? Based off based off a set of evidence and based off some kind of like model that assesses the evidence against the claim, and then there's a whole consortium of different agents and different stakeholders that eventually say like, hey, this is true or this is not true, or this is the actuality of this claim, and here's how it's represented, and here's the gap in between the information that's represented here and the information that has been gathered through whatever means, right? But again, it's counterintelligence. It's not really going into it's a defense mechanism for you, right? Because you don't know what's real, and I'm putting out too much information for you to be able to check everything manually or by human labor, right? So to a certain degree, we can shield people and we can make people be able to wield our tools, and thus also create, like on top of that whole model, you can build an environment, of course. Now we have a whole on-chain database of different pieces of information and claims, and their, let's say, score in terms of how real that information is. Like, you could just isolate yourself from the rest of the world and only consume that information, but that's not really a realistic thing to do. So, well, yeah, and to come back to your question is like, can we use technology to try and avoid people? So I'm rephrasing the question, okay? The question should be, can we use technology to avoid people from misusing the technology? Right? The AI generated news reels and so on. And I think the answer here is no.
Yeah, so just jumping in. So yes, I mean, if the AI has gone rogue, or let's say the people has gone rogue using AI, then of course not. But what I'm not sure if you guys noticed, but what OpenAI and Google are doing is they are basically embedding all the generated content with a watermark. They call it C2PA metadata, and once you basically upload this generated content on LinkedIn or any other social media, I think LinkedIn has started doing that. They identify or they indicate to the readers that this is a AI generated content. There is a certain C mark if you see on the image or something that says, okay, this has been an AI generated content. So there is no standard, of course, but there has been kind of efforts like this. But of course, if someone were to just use open source, like open source LLMs by Meta or somewhere, and then generate something, then yeah,
The
that
first,
would not be able to mark.
yeah, the first thing I would do, I would create the thing that will remove this watermark.
Right. I was gonna ask you, it's like, yeah. So I was gonna ask you, do you know on a technical level how this works?
Not exactly, no. But basically, I guess they right now, I think few of the top AI models are working on a standardized metadata. It is not a standard yet, and yeah, they are basically working together to create what you call like counterintelligence, right? Or let's say an anti-AI kind of an identification
Yeah.
metadata.
Yeah, and here you are going to enter a very interesting conversation, because now we're actually putting the power of tolerance for AI generated content in the hands of the platforms, right? So in the hands of the most centralized players in the world, such as YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, but also news agencies and so on, right? So they are going to be the ones ultimately to decide whether their platform is going to tolerate AI generated content for whatever purpose it might be, and whether they are going to pay ad revenues over that content. So if the world is very sane, then probably we'll see that model change over time. Probably people are not going to be rewarded and paid too much money anymore over ad views, because that is just going to be saturated, I can imagine. Because, well, I'm not 100% sure, but I'm thinking out loud here. So maybe you guys can help me think through this, but would that mean that because the technology is proliferated and commoditized, now everybody can make videos. Many more people will start making videos, especially in the beginning of this technology hitting the market, like now with VO3, for example. We can probably imagine that like there's going to be so many different types of content that are going to, pop up. And that like there's just probably like the velocity and the size of the amount of video material that's going to be uploaded to all of these platforms is just going to explode like crazy. But that would also probably mean that the ad revenues would be like highly diluted, no?
Yep. And I also like to compare this with I think like the packaged food industry. So back in the day, like 1950s, 60s, when the packaged food was introduced, they costed higher than the organic food, right? And people were like, it was a new thing. People were like, wow, I don't have to cook, and they can just put it in microwave and eat, save time. And over time, basically, people realized that it's not so healthy to eat the packaged food, and people started gravitate towards organic food. And now if you see, the organic food is more costly than the packaged food. So I guess we can probably see this same as AI created content and the content created by human. Right now everyone is like using the AI created content, but over the time it won't be profitable. It won't be, basically there will be like overload of AI content, and then people will start gravitating towards, or algorithms will start gravitating towards the human created content, for
Yeah,
content.
I love that analogy, and I love that analogy. I actually just read a book last week that mentioned this organic food um thing you just mentioned. Like just realize that back in the day all food was organic, right? Like pre-pesticides, pre-GMO, pre like industrialization. All the food was organic and grown locally by local farmers, bought on local markets. There were no supermarkets. There were like no like food products that you could really keep for, super long times and so on. So yeah, this is a really nice analogy. That's really nice. Marco, I also saw you were trying to speak.
Yeah, all good, but it's so interesting. I didn't want to interrupt, but I have to think like, how is the algorithm ever gonna differentiate? The algorithm actually just cares about what the user is staying at, right? I keep thinking about a kind of a gun system. I mean, gun, for those that don't know, you pretty much just have like two neural networks that fight against each other. You have this one that generates, I mean, the idea is it generates actually fake content or synthetic content, and the discriminator kind of evaluates and is like, hey, no, this is fake. And then the generator network just gets better. It was like many years ago a system for kind of building these neural networks. And I keep thinking it should work also the other way around. Like you actually have just feeding into it like fake content and then trying to figure out, or feeding all kinds of content and just trying to figure out which parts are actually fake. So not kind of trying to beat the system or improve the generator in a sense, but you actually want to improve the discriminator. But I just haven't seen anything in that regard. I likely also because it's just not worth it, right? I mean, most people just want to generate stuff, so most of the money is flooding into this. But hopefully, at some point, it kind of balances out, and we have strong discriminator networks. That would be actually pretty neat. And then you have AI detecting AI generated content, right?
Yeah, yeah. This actually makes me think of something that I read regarding the watermarking. I think it typically operates during the text generation process, and before each token is generated, the model divides the possible next tokens into two groups. One is labeled like whatever black or white or red and green, and then the model subtly like increases the probability of the tokens from the green group. Um, and it restricts like the red group, but um, it also um, it also it also tries to um, tries to create like a database of what it has put out and what it hasn't put out. But with that data, you can then later on detect, you can go back around. So there's a generator that generates the text and then has two pools, which are red and green, and then compares them to each other. And calculates the probability of whether that text was actually generated using the same model or not, for example. So I think it works a little bit similar. So the process is also, so the watermarking also embeds a statistical pattern into the generated text without affecting the quality or the coherence. So that's also why it pulls like green and red, for example. So yeah, but of course, like the detection is performed by analyzing the distribution of the tokens in the text and then statistically comparing or assessing whether the frequency and the sequence of the supposed green tokens align with what would be the expected watermark model if it would have generated that text. You know what I mean? So instead of like giving one output, now it gives two outputs and it creates a certain sequence, or it creates a certain mix of green and red tokens. And that sequence is like probably consistent over a certain period of time, and then it changes. So then the detection can happen in the same manner that you described it, Marco. So that's very interesting. But of course, you know, like you can game this, like Vladimir said, like those. I mean, you would want to create something universal, right? To counteract these kinds of things or prove that something is AI generated or not. But I think it's going to be super hard. I think it's going to be really, really hard.
Yeah, I think if you are using the same model with the same entropy, it tends to give like similar results, right? So in a social network, if the AI, let's say, or counterintelligence AI starts seeing a certain kind of pattern, as you mentioned, right, distribution in a certain way, then it can just tag those accounts with this AI content, right? But if someone is sophisticated, they could like locally run the model and keep on changing the entropy every single time, and that kind of creates like distinct content, and then it becomes difficult to find out that this account is an AI generated content. But for the most people, I guess like 99 or 95% of people at least, it will kind of give the same model will kind of give the same results or similar results, because they are probably using the same entropy within the same platform.
Yeah, correct. So yeah, and that is like obviously like there's a lack of standardization because not everybody is using the same models, right? Each company or organization develops its own, watermarking technique, but also develops its own, tone of voice for their LLM and so on. So there's no industry-wide standard, and that makes it really difficult to create interoperable tools that can reliably detect these the models across different platforms. I do believe that it's easier with image and sound because there's just much more encoded data into an image that is generated. There's a whole lot more going on than, and I think that actually it's very easy to like if it's a source file. I'm talking about source files. Yeah, like of course this is going to sound less interesting than how I portrayed it in the previous sentence. But if you compare like a source file with another source file, so a source file of an image generated image opposed to like a photograph, for example, or something that you exported from Photoshop, like you can see differences. Like there's like it's easy to tell. But now if you upload that same source file onto X, for example, it gets compressed, and then all of a sudden everything looks the same, right? So, there there are technical limitations with these watermarks, and especially the visible ones, and they're always vulnerable to removal, maybe also degradation as platforms, like indeed like compress and so on. So yeah, compression, cropping, maybe also formatting can probably strip and obscure watermarks pretty easily without requiring sophisticated tools, really. And then again, like copy and pasting some text and flipping around, like using one of those statistical word shufflers, for example, like, okay, there goes your whole whole that goes your whole model. So in the end, it all comes down to policy. I believe it's gonna come down to policy, and that's a shame because we know that in this age, the majority of the world is not handling policy very well.
Yeah, actually, I think even if we do get the watermarks in place and we can accurately tell, AI
Jesse, are you
generated
trying to
content.
speak? I see you're unmuted.
Oh, I hear Jesse.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
I
can
too.
hear
Can
you.
you hear me?
Yep,
I
loud
do.
and
Oh,
clear.
interesting. Okay, go ahead. Sorry, I cannot hear you, Jesse, but just go ahead and let me know once you guys are finished. X is acting up again.
Oh, okay. So I think even though we are able to tell AI generated content from human generated content, I don't think the problem of misinformation will be tackled because I feel like AI generated content are generally going to be more captivating, and the algorithms will only get stronger, and it will provide like more entertainment and more information to everyone. And I feel like to some point, like the content generated by AI is going to outnumber the content generated by humans. And if that content is better than human generated content, I don't see any reason people will refuse to consume that content, even though they can detect that it's AI generated. And also, I feel like that will only worsen the misinformation problem because the information will be so persuasive. It kind of feel like the social media algorithms, even though they're recommending, uh, like photoshopped photos, like uh, fake news, but that is catching up the most attention. So like the platforms are incentivized to promote those content. I feel like this will be similar when AI content uh, like outnumber and like really provide really high quality content. I don't think people, like most people, will refuse them, and it will be so easy for you know uh, the people behind these AI generated content to infuse misinformation. And also like with AI agents, if people get like emotionally attached with this agent, they will be more easily to believe what the agent tells them, and it will be so much harder for them to tell if that information is right or wrong. And I just think this problem will be very difficult to tackle in the long future.
Yeah, I also think that this is interesting because like if we'll think about our lives, we all live actually not in material reality, but in hypertext reality, because we have right now our world model, basically like our decision making instruction come from the text, and we're living in the textual words because like there is like things like passports, social security, like bank accounts and all these numbers ruling actually our lives. And I would argue that we indeed living like in artificial reality already, and we're spending a lot of our time working in some like sitting, looking at the screens, and so on. And the question that's interesting for me would be is that we actually like what is the truth and what is reality, right? Because the reality is something that becomes truth is the majority of people that are following the information, and everything that goes down to informational warfare or like to informational security and information will come from making more people to believe in your claims. And we see like a lot of different stuff like manipulating elections or like doing a lot of different stuff or like launching the product, doing like fucking go to market for Web3, right? It's all about like making people to believe that you are actually like doing this and this thing is real. But what is real? And this is like very interesting question that I would just like, I think this is like the most important question that we should consider right now, because if we'll think about that, it's not about like we live in material world, because I don't go and kill a cow to make myself a burger, for example, right? I just go to the hypermarket and supermarket and I just like buying this piece of meat. I don't even know that it's meat, but I know it tastes good because I feel that. And all the information that I absorb is goes from me like scrolling the Twitter or like reading some news or something, and it's not real or it cannot be real. So I think it's the question should be framed is that not about like what is truth and what is not, but it's how we can make the informational warfare much more effective and beneficial for the world, because like there is like very complex philosophical question in the end.
Yes, I somewhere read like a couple of years ago in a museum, perception is reality, and they kind of built the whole experiences around it, and it stuck with me because that's really how we perceive it, right? Like whatever is my perception, that is my reality. So in a sense, there could even be multiple. It's very difficult to kind of agree on a version of reality. Unfortunately, similar to truth, even though there should be one truth.
Yeah, I mean, this is a very philosophical debate that I've actually tried to really dissect for a very long time, and it's really hard to dissect. And what is hard to dissect is that there doesn't seem to be a unanimous truth for um, for everybody in the world. There's kind of like this mesh of truths that are close to each other, and the closeness, the proximity of your truth and my truth um, establishes also the proximity of our relationship and our capability to live alongside each other. So, like you see this, for example, in religion, right? So religion is one of the like most extreme um, divider in the world still, and it has been for a very long time because we have something that's true for you and something that's true for me. For example, like you believe in one God, I believe in another God. Your God is different from my God, and my scripture is truth. And what my scripture says is that your God is a false God, and I shall therefore inflict harm on you, right? There's literally religions in the world that actually condone this. And not just one, there are several. So, like in that context, your subjective experience is your reality, is your truth, right? And the question of whether God is real or not is, in your eyes, not a question. It's a something that is just the way you think about the world. There's a God, and your God is the right God, right? So, like there's a big distance between those two truths. They kind of like are polar opposites. They oppose each other, and this creates hostility, and this creates wars, and this creates conflicts. So to bring it back to what Vladimir was saying, it's like everything is a subjective experience, and there's only so much truth in each and every one experience, and that is true. And then you have the material world, and the material world is constantly in perpetual motion. And there's this really beautiful saying of a Greek philosopher, I forgot his name, but it goes something like, you cannot step in the same river twice, and nor can you, the same man cannot step in the same river twice. So first of all, the river is flowing, so it will not be the same river. Secondly, it will not be the same man, because within the first time and the second time that this man steps into this supposedly the same river, the man has changed too, right? Like he had some thoughts, he had some interactions. Probably he went to, if it was Vladimir, he probably went to the supermarket, bought something at the supermarket, right? And then came back, and then it was a few pounds heavier and stepped into the river again. But his subjective experience is that he indeed is the same man stepping into the same river, but from a materialistic perspective, or like the material world perspective. If you want to call everything that happens in the world material, on a material level, right? Whether you can touch it or not, for example, um, as a ground truth, then still the subjective experience and the relay of that experience is the truth that we communicate to one another. So you can see this like everywhere in the world creating issues. For example, why do we need a legal system? Is because in very tense and emotional situations, your experience and my experience will be highly different. So if there's like a, for example, if there's a fist fight on the street, maybe both parties and a lot of like bystanders are there, but everybody will have a different story. And like what does a researcher do, or what does the police do? They find the the proximity closest to a coherent truth that can be verified by many different people, right? So let's say like if the majority of people that have witnessed that event said that like the other guy started, guy A was fighting guy B, but it was really guy A that started the fight, and thus he should be responsible for the damages of guy B, and whatever else happened, it doesn't really matter. But so they just find the proximity that is closest to truth, but that is still only a probabilistic statement, right? It's not the actual truth, right? Because the witnesses only relay the information from their subjective experience, and maybe like they don't understand the whole kind of like till or the runner up to that event. Maybe the guy, the other guy was actually the culprit, and maybe the other guy did something to that other guy's daughter, but that whole slate of information was not available to the bystanders. They only witnessed the event. So here you can already hear that it's really, really complicated to settle on a ground truth, because there's no like there's no big brother yet that like listens and sees and can replay um, everything that happens in the world, and does establish a more base truth. But then still, the interpretation of the person that is watching that replay of the event is still what is going to decide the truth. Now, where does this become even more tricky is obviously if we're talking about the cyberspace, right? If we're talking about like a very, very, very high velocity of information being shared, and information being shared among people without oversight, which is really great. I'm not saying we should have a big brother, but obviously it does make things very, very, very complicated. And that's why I'm very excited to be in this space, Like I do believe that there's a lot of potential for blockchain and zero knowledge technology to counteract and to create environments where we can trust each other better. But yeah, like it's super philosophical, and it is indeed not easy to navigate the space. And again, I want to come back to it's all about policy, and it's all about our personal policies too. Like what do you tolerate? Do you tolerate being lied to? Do you tolerate being lied to a certain degree? Do you tolerate do you not tolerate being lied to at all? And if you're not, are you going to act upon that notion by shielding yourself and by arming yourself against misinformation, against AI generated content, against AI generated videos, um, to be able to whatever keep your peace of mind, or like whatever your motivation might be? Or do you feel like you have no control over it, and you're just surrounded by you're just engulfed in these environments like X, for example, and you're just going to hand the responsibility to essentially the CEO of the company to make a decision on whether like AI generated content on their platform is going to be condoned and promoted or not. So yeah, I mean, we're coming to an end here, and I think this is a high note to leave you guys on. Thank you very much, everybody, for joining our space once again. I see that there's a bunch of live listeners, which is great to see. I welcome everybody back again in 2 weeks, because it's a bi-weekly space. And thank you, everybody. Thank you, Vladimir. Thank you, Jesse. And thank you, Manan. And thank you, Marco, of course, for joining us once again. I hope to speak to you guys very soon. We'll probably invite you back again in a few months. And have a nice weekend, everybody.
Thank you.
I mean, it's